What you're hearing is Hardie Fiber Cement Siding living up to its reputation as the siding that helps resist weather damage, no matter what Mother Nature throws its way. James Hardie knows how important a reputation is, especially when you're a home builder. That's why Hardie products withstand the elements better than wood-based siding, with styles to match their strength. Because when home builders work with us, we deliver our best so they can look their best. Protect your reputation with exterior products by James Hardie.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/pod.
Hello, friends. Seems like that kind of weekend, right? Fun Belt Podcast is back. 2 of the 3 amigos. Ben Moore, of course, of PantherDoc.com. Dusty Thibodeaux of the Warhawk Report, and we are sans Jeremy Harper. He bailed out, but I have been missing the last 2 weeks. You guys have been holding it down tremendously. I've listened to every minute of the show just to make sure that I was getting thoroughly bashed and beaten about the head and neck the right way. But yeah, Dusty, man, it's there's stuff going on, dude. Like, we were talking briefly just off air. The amount of sportage across the Sunbelt landscape is kind of getting crazy, right? You got spring practice, baseball, softball, pretty much all the spring sports are kind of sprinting toward the last month and a half here. There's a lot going on, man, across the landscape of the Fun Belt.
There is, and I got to make the voyage back to the Bayou at ULM this past weekend, pulled off the trifecta, went to softball, baseball, and then spring football games. Loved every minute of it. I am bright red. Maybe I'm a little bit of Arkansas State shining through as my redness. It's not really a maroon yet, so definitely a great weekend on the Bayou. Always good to be back and see ULM, see the Warhawks, see how that program is progressing, but then always following up, watching on ESPN, the different baseball games going around. Really, though, there wasn't a whole lot of baseball this past week. Mother Nature just did not want the Sun Belt to play. So a lot of cancellations. We did get to see, though, Louisiana Lafayette play Louisiana Tech. They split in the midweek. Troy fell to a very good Southeastern Louisiana team out of the Southland. And I know everyone's going to focus on the Southland, and everyone's mind immediately shifts to football of their FCS. That's a good program that's probably going to be in a regional.
Yeah, it's one of those things, too. We know this is where you kind of get the people who follow college baseball and don't, right? Because you always look at the school names on the jerseys, and you're starting to kind of relay them to even a men's basketball or that. When you have a divide, it was funny. I was talking to my dad today about it, just talking about how the playing field, it's a lot more level in college baseball. So you're going to see some of these midweek upsets potentially. And I put that kind of in air quotes here, but because you're not getting your weekend starters, you got teams that can really hit the ball and they're really talented and do well. That's why, to me, it's a lot of fun. You really look at the month of April and the month of May when we start getting into, really kind of the cream of the crop rising in a big way, across, and you get these midweek games, even if they're interstate midweek games that are tremendous. And you see a lot of these times where the bigger name programs potentially get knocked off by the teams that you're not necessarily thinking about or kind of in the pecking order of things. And, we all know, we went to Sunbelt schools. We're alums of Sunbelt schools. When you get an opportunity to knock off one of those teams, when you maybe weren't recruited by them and you're saying, hey, you know what, I'm good enough to play in the Sunbelt. As we know, the Sunbelt's a very good baseball league. You get that opportunity and it fires kids up, and coaches too. Coaches want to, prove, hey, I want to go out and beat a Sunbelt team.
You mentioned that this past weekend, even at ULM, it was a reunion of the 2012 NCAA regional team that won the Sunbelt Conference baseball reunion. They were there. They were right there with LSU in the NCAA regional in Alex Box Stadium. Wound up losing, I think the final was 5-1, 3-1, somewhere around there. But they were right there hanging with the big boys. And so it's always great to see when you're able to have those games. The underdog, so to say, is able to kind of really showcase their skill set. And ironically, the pitcher was Randy Ziegler, who had started his career at LSU, then got cut, saying, sorry, you're just not quite LSU material. So there was even more emphasis, like you said, to really showcase what he could and could not do in that situation.
Yeah, and I think across the league, it just kind of shows as well. And when you get that opportunity against, kind of the name program, we've seen certainly with Coastal, we saw it obviously this year with Texas State, knocking off Texas and how big that was, for them. And here in Georgia State and Georgia Southern get the opportunity to try to knock heads with the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech. The biggest thing, it's great for the league when they get those wins, but it's also great for those programs.
What's in the water in Atlanta, by the way? Because the Panthers obviously were the hot team in basketball. They were really that it team in football. They had a clean sweep this past weekend against the face of Sunbelt baseball of Coastal Carolina. They're now sitting atop the standings with a 7-game win streak.
Yeah, it's a really, really impressive stretch here. Coach Stromdahl was a guy who was on the staff with Greg Frady. Went out and started a program, left GSU and went to basically Georgia Gwinnett College, a school that started at NAIA and then moved up, to kind of start his own program. And now the Panthers are back. This is unparalleled success for the last decade. But the talent on this roster is they have pitching, they have timely hitting. They got into the Coastal bullpen yesterday. Pretty good and put up 4 to rally back for the victory there. But it most definitely was a statement win. And, not to jump ahead on our show sheet here, but there is a seismic series coming this upcoming weekend because they go down to travel rival Georgia Southern, which, again, these two schools already don't like each other. And now you're talking about, I believe, I saw from Warren Nolan, I think Southern checks in at 16th in the RPI. And Georgia State is 30th. So these are not just two of the best teams in the Sun Belt right now. These are two of the hottest teams in the country, with Southern taking, 2 of 3 from Texas State. So it's going to be a battle. We talked just briefly about, the in-state battles. Georgia State's got a little game with Georgia Tech. No big deal. Just a, top 15, top 20 RPI team this week for a midweek game over there at Tech. And then they travel down to the Devil's Highway, as I call it, down I-16 to take on the rival Georgia Southern. But it's tremendous. Georgia State right now is having, a great spring across the board. I mean, their tennis programs are on top of the world, won the Sun Belt. Softball, shout out to my dad. That's one of the reasons I was talking to him. He's the public address announcer for GSU softball. So if you ever come and see a softball game, anybody that comes listen to the podcast, you'll hear my old man. He's very excited. He's winning, up with the wins, down with the losses, and he got to call the walk-off today. So he was super excited about that when he called me about 3:30 Eastern.
Definitely a dream come true there. Yeah, you mentioned Georgia Southern. They're a surprise team. And, when I went to go see them play at Louisiana Lafayette, nothing really stands out. They're just kind of the dirtbag team that really goes out and does everything they need to do to get the wins.
Yeah, and I think they're one of those, it's one of those programs too that they I think took a little bit of a step back and tried to gain some footing there when they came over, when they moved, into the Sun Belt. Baseball was a dominant program in the SoCon. They had NCAA regional appearances and were really kind of at the top of that league consistently. And we know how strong, certainly over the last, really decade and a half, how strong Sun Belt baseball has been, with obviously Louisiana doing extremely well. Coastal obviously won the national championship. And as you mentioned, Coastal being the name program here. Texas State, again, walking into that series this weekend, they were 10th in the nation. And for Southern to walk in basically and take 2 of 3, take the series, I'm very interested, tomorrow when the polls come out, just how far Texas State drops, because as I mentioned, Southern's right there RPI wise. They've really played and beat a lot of really good teams this season, and there's nothing overly flashy. I don't think there's draft picks up and down that roster by no means, but they play They're gritty. They fight and battle, and you better get out number 27, or you may be in for a rough day.
The flip side of the Georgia schools being the hot team, Arkansas State dropped another series. I don't know, watching them, how you can really get that team turned around without just kind of blowing it up inside out and starting anew. It was interesting on Sunday afternoon. They took Louisiana Lafayette down the wire, went into extras before falling. But what are your thoughts on that program of how exactly can they kind of right the ship and get back to being even a 500 team?
It's tough, and it's one of those situations ultimately when when you're going out and recruiting, and I know we obviously focus on men's basketball and football as much, but I've talked to baseball coaches over the course of several years and just being around college athletics. It's one of the most difficult sports to recruit to anyway, because you have an early signing period, you have a late signing period, of course, Major League Baseball draft as well. And players want to go where they're going to, play, they're going to want to win, and then potentially get drafted. And so you have kind of a ball has to start rolling basically. And it looks like it's just going in the wrong direction for Arkansas State. It's just continuing to go down. And I know, Jeremy's talked about it on howraiser.com, and, it comes down to resources. It comes down to recruiting. Baseball in a lot of ways for most fans, I kind of almost have it as a pie where you're going to have, the vast majority of alums are going to be interested in the football program, right? You want the football team to succeed. Then you're going to have a little slice of that pie. It's going to be football and maybe basketball fans, right? You're going to have that. Baseball takes up a fraction of that. And especially when you're not winning, it's very hard to, garner support, bring fans out. And that's the most difficult thing about it is folks that don't, watch college baseball and pay attention to it and know, hey, look, this is an opportunity. You just have casual conversations with just general college fans. They have no idea the strains and restraints and who's good and who's not until really, the games are, on ESPN and they're in, the NCAA regionals or even to the College World Series. So, it's one of those things where you tell people how strong the league is. You talk to people who are familiar with baseball. Again, Sun Belt is a very good league, very strong, top to bottom. And you just kind of have to get out of that gutter. So by whatever means necessary, you can do that. And it comes down to players. I remember Georgia State for years was one of the top hitting teams in the country, but pitching always failed them. So, they could hit and blast, and every single game it was 14-11. So, you have to have obviously some balance there and go. And I know Arkansas State needs a lot of help at a lot of different positions at this point.
The good old TLC, a program there that has really righted the ship under first-year head coach Skyler Meade, the Troy Trojans. They are just dominant when it comes to pitching, ranking 39th in the NCAA for strikeouts per 9 innings with just over 10. This weekend, I got to see it firsthand. They dominated the Warhawks as they were pushing 40 Ks in the 3-game series. I caught up with the head coach, Skyler Meade. He gave us a breakdown of his team as well as giving us a preview of how he sees the season shaking out for the Sun Belt Conference down the stretch.
Well, it starts from what you do in August. It sounds cliche, but I believe it's really true in terms of, just really like enhancing the weight room stuff, cleaning up all of our guys. I mean, that's one thing, and it sounds weird because I know I'm talking about myself, but one thing we've always done is we work hard to clean up deliveries, try to boost guys' confidence and how they go about their routines and stuff like that. And so I think that's certainly a big part of it. And, there's some young guys that are really hungry here that have taken advantage of opportunities. And, when we see guys that are doing well, we're going to roll them as much as possible.
Your first year in the league, you're definitely one of us here in the Sun Belt, but you're still kind of the outsider looking in. How do you see this league kind of shaking out here in the latter half of the season?
That's a great question. I don't have a real pulse in terms of like overall with the league. Obviously, I try to watch many games. I know tonight I'll be watching probably the South Al game on ESPN because I think during the season that's all you watch is baseball. Look, Texas State's coach, Trout's done a great job with that group, bouncing back from last year. It was a bit of a disappointing year. We always know Coastal's going to have good athletes and be tough. The Georgia schools are are really good. I've been very impressed with Georgia State, especially their bullpen, what they're doing. Lafayette's a nightmare defensively because they're so fast. I mean, you can just go up and down. I just think there's a lot of good teams in this league. I mean, look, RPI is RPI this time of year, but at the same time, we've hit the second part of the second part of the year, and you're like, wow, there's 7 teams in the top 75 in RPI. I do think that speaks volumes in terms of where this league is and then where it's going.
What do you feel is left for your team to accomplish this year as y'all really focus in on kind of staying home there to go to Montgomery for the conference tournament?
Well, last week or so, we got to clean up some things defensively, just making some quality plays late. We got to be a little bit better about that. But, we got to just keep our guys healthy, keep them twitchy. I think offensively, we've tried to do some things to make sure our guys stay quick with their bat. Guys stay healthy pitching-wise. Getting Gary Gaines back this week was really good. Obviously, he was dominant yesterday. The young both Fullers really have been tremendous for us, both Brady and Keaton. And so we just got to make sure we just stay the course. If you keep throwing strikes, if you make simple plays, and you can be diverse offensively, I think you can do pretty well throughout the course of the year, and that's our hope.
So in addition to all the baseball that we have going on, we have softball going as well. Conference leader, South Alabama, kind of another weird situation. We talked about baseball having a lot of rainouts. We got snow also going up and down the East Coast. So South Alabama only able to play one game against Appalachian State, of course, getting the win. It was actually the Friday night game they finally squeezed in on Sunday. I don't know how they kind of make those games up, or if they ever even worry about it before the conference, because really the separation is still there that South Alabama, Louisiana Lafayette have kind of distinguished themselves already into being that 1-2 slot.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I wonder, how almost when we had, during 2020 and 2021, when you were, looking at some of the other sports, do you need to make them up? Do you look at, going to the win percentage if you can't even up the games and things like that? But yeah, seeing the snow pictures from Boone were pretty wild, as we know in April. All up and down and seeing them just absolutely smack. We're used to seeing that on the front end, right? The front end of baseball and softball season, saying, all right, well, there's going to be some snow here and snow there. Not certainly, the second week of April.
But it's only going to get worse as we add more northern teams to the league. Sure. With that said, though, they may not have to make up these games because this upcoming week is actually the Raging Cajuns traveling to Mobile to face the Jaguars. I don't think there's enough screens that I'll be able to have for all these baseball games on the Thursday through Saturday because of Easter Sunday coming up. I don't know if I'll have enough bandwidth to be able to handle all the streaming or enough screens to be able to watch all these games. I'm too excited for it.
It's incredible. And I think this is the fun. And as I mentioned a little earlier, when the cream rises to the top, you're just seeing, the level of quality and the top teams battle each other this late in the season where they can, set up their pitching staffs, and you're getting to see really, some of the best players up and down the lineup, in the league. And I think that's my favorite time of year, quite honestly.
Coastal Carolina had to bang their entire series this past weekend, 1-11 though overall in Sun Belt Conference. They'll host ULM, a team I got to see this week. Friday night, a walk-off winner streamed on ESPN Plus, the 1,000th win in program history. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? I don't know, but it was very notable, and what a way to do it. They also picked up their second series win in Sun Belt Conference play on Saturday as they beat Texas State. So we talked about everything that we have going on here in the spring, and you had mentioned it earlier, Ben, there that we have spring football going on. Yesterday on the Bayou, I got to catch up with the voice of ULM, Nick White, who joins us now to talk about the Warhawks, Ben.
Yeah, well, welcome, Nick. Welcome to the Fun Belt Podcast.
Yeah, glad to be on with you guys. Always enjoy it and glad to get a chance to talk about ULM and coming off the spring game yesterday.
So, Nick, 4 years there that you've been the man of play-by-play. What's been your biggest memory so far in your brief time as the play-by-play guy?
Well, there's been a few, and obviously, I guess full time 4 years, and of course from 2015 to the point I took over for Frank Hoffman, I was doing the road games. So there are a few that stand out. The game against UL Lafayette a few years ago, double overtime, 56-50. That's certainly from the football perspective that stands out. Warhawks blew a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, and then came back. Derek Gore able to score there in double overtime and get that win 56-50. But by far, it's this past year and that win against Liberty. I mean, it's the biggest upset as far as point spread going back to 2012. And I remember going into that ball game and just hearing everything about Malik Willis, and you see, where he's at right now as far as the draft standings and a first-round pick, projected first-round pick, and we knew that coming in. But really for back-to-back years, because we went to Liberty during the COVID year of 2020, and this was a series that was already planned a home and home. And ULM, we were talking about that actually yesterday in the broadcast, Mike McGee and I, and Tag Rome. We were just talking about how, really in both those games, the Warhawks, even though losing in 2020 to Liberty, really did a good job on him, but just the atmosphere. And then Dusty, you know better than anybody. You've been around it for a while. The misfortunes of the kicking woes in the history of Warhawk football, and how many bowls and I know off the top of my head 3 bowl opportunities have gone awry due to missed kicks in the final game, and a couple against Lafayette, and so for Callum Sutherland to hit a 53-yarder towards the south end zone, which has always kind of been the house of horrors for this football team, that was just thrilling. And then to see the defense capitalize and close that thing out was just spectacular. So those two really, really stand out. We've had some heartaches in there as well, and that's back-to-back years against the Cajuns, missing kicks, and there have been a few others as well, and obviously a West title missed opportunity by one. And some bowl games as well. But those two, as far as wins go, they definitely stand at the top of the list.
I'm wiping tears, having flashbacks of that Florida State game already. Thank you.
Florida State, yeah, I didn't even mention that one. That would have been number one. That's a great story to tell. In 2019, obviously ULM at Florida State, and the decision in overtime. And of course, I'm immediately knowing the history, and I'm thinking, okay, you're sending the kicker out. Caleb Evans has been unstoppable. You don't want to second guess, but I didn't say that on the air, but I'm thinking it. And lo and behold, you miss the PAT and you lose that ball game in overtime. And it's funny in the fourth quarter because obviously it was a pretty big upset brewing. Our producer back in Monroe at the flagship gets on during a break and says, "Hey, we're getting calls from New York and Los Angeles and Bristol, Connecticut." And I said, "Yeah, those like Fox and all these, like make sure they patched into this call, because they wanted to try to get the call if ULM had won that thing." And I guess that was my big Sports Center moment that went awry right there with this PAT. But you talk about. That I didn't bring that one up, Dusty. That one might stand up there as well. Here's another great story. I'm a pin thrower whenever I get frustrated during the course of a ball game, whether it be football or basketball. And I'm pretty sure that my pin flew out the window and might have gouged somebody's eye out, a Florida State fan, whenever they missed that PAT. Either that or I broke the window because that pin was gone. I threw it so hard. And so anyway, it's that one was a quiet flight back to Monroe. I can tell you that much.
Well, Nick, I'll tell you, as a guy pre-GSU, of course, we're only 13 years old with our football program. I was born a Knoll, so my dad and I are season ticket holders.
Right.
2009. I watched every single snap of that game, and I could not tell you the level of expletives that were flying across my text chain between myself, my uncle, several cousins. The vast majority of my family is from Florida. So as you were disgusted, they relieved, I will tell you that much. And then it kicked up again, of course, when Florida State went down in a heap to Jacksonville State, soon to be FBS members this year. So the Knolls have been flirting with disaster for quite a long time. But yeah.
Well, and I can tell you, if and he obviously got his pink slip, but if ULM pulls that off, Tiger wasn't making it out of the building that night. And
no, he'd have been calling the press conference. It'd have been press conference, and here's the car. Call or the Uber and probably the moving company.
And man, again, you think about that ball game, and you hate to live too much in the past, but think about Caleb Evans, and man, he was unstoppable. You really got to believe if you go for two and you just put the ball in Caleb's hand, ULM's going to win that ball game 43-42. And that didn't happen. I don't, Coach V, I love Coach V and Coach Viator, and he trusted his gut on that and then immediately owned up to it, said he should have went for two. And so you obviously admire somebody that can do that. But man, I think about how special Caleb was and his 4 years. And obviously I know we're going to get into this year. The man that kind of engineered the offense, Matt Cubic, being back with ULM. Cube and I were talking, recently, and just how special Caleb was. And you hate to say this, but you almost feel like Caleb Evans got wasted with his career here. And I don't think people here in Monroe will ever fully appreciate how good he was, how special he was. And all you got to do to me is put on the film of the last game of his career, his ULM career, against the Raging Cajuns, and in the last drive, he single-handedly, along with a spectacular catch by Josh Peterson, puts the Warhawks in position to win the football game with a field goal, and obviously that was missed, and that's how his Warhawk career ended. Win that ball game, you're going to a bowl, you get an extra one, and all you got to do is look and see what he did in the CFL this year, and really realize how good of a player he is and was.
So, Nick, I kind of put you on the spot here. Last 3 years, Warhawks have had 6 conference wins. Do you feel that the program's headed in the right direction under Terry Bowden, and that those 6 wins can continue to multiply?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I think last year, man, we talked about it yesterday because obviously it's more of a conversationalist broadcast whenever you're doing a spring game, and so we kind of reflected back on last year, and man, you get 4-3, and you're thinking, all right, you're going bowling, you're going to get to at least 6 wins, and then you drop your last 5, and there's certainly fans thoughts and reasons why that happened. I don't want to dive into any of that, obviously, right here, but yeah, I think so. I think being in the building, and seeing what Terry wants to bring to the table, and trying to change and flip the mentality with still, the stuff you hear about all the time, the lowest budget, facilities, and blah, 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 blah. He's kind of embracing that and trying to change the culture there. And coaching can only do so much, but you got to get players. I mean, that's the game right now. And that's going to be, with this schedule, it's pretty tough this year, especially non-conference at Texas, at Alabama, at Army. You got Coastal Carolina coming in on the east side, and then obviously in the west, you got to deal with the Cajuns, and you got to deal with some pretty solid teams in there. You got to take a trip to Georgia State as well, which has been a house of horrors of the last 2 years there against the Panthers. So you will see. I mean, obviously, it's going in a better direction than from 2020, and 1.5, I think, was the win total Vegas had going into the year, and you eclipse that after a few weeks there, and then you get the 4-3, and then the disappointing end. So, and that's something we talked about yesterday too. If you would have told me before kickoff that ULM would end up with 4 wins, I would have said, heck yeah, give it to me. And then you get to 4-3, and then you lose your last 5, and then you say, man, that was disappointing, but it was still, from those standards, coming from a winless year, I think an impressive job by Coach Bowden in year 1. And I think the staff has been upgraded personally. And with experience with Coach Cubic coming back on the offensive side, Vic Koning, who's got some Sunbelt skins on the wall there, and just John Carr coming back, Coach Segler coming back to ULM. Those guys had some success here with this program, especially on the offensive side. So, and what I saw yesterday, I think we're going to see ULM get back to those high offensive numbers. And if so, they're going to have a chance to go win some football games in this league.
Yeah, and I think the schedule's definitely stacked against them this year. So I don't know if 2022 is really going to be a fair statement of saying where the program's at as a whole. But I definitely think that the program is moving in the right direction. Will they hit 4 wins? Maybe, maybe not. But I definitely think you'll see a lot better of a product, a lot better of a team on the field, and definitely a lot more smiles there from head coach Terry Bowden.
Yeah, I think so. I think you gotta understand this was a total rebuild here too. I mean that's the other thing that people have to realize around here, that this was a total rebuild. I mean 0-10 didn't lead for a second there out of that, in 2020, and I called every second of it, and it was miserable. It was not fun, and so once again, I think the progress was there. To have that massive win against Liberty was great. To have these opportunities, and yet disappointment there, but definitely something to build on. But the schedule is tough. But the schedule was tough last year, and he still won 4. So I think it's very doable. I think the league is really balanced from top to bottom. Although, obviously you've seen what Appalachian State and what UL Lafayette has been able to do during their time here recently. They've kind of been dominant. But I really, expect that this league, I think top to bottom, compared to other Group of 5 conferences, it's not comparable from top to bottom. I think that, it's a very, very balanced league, and will be so even with the additions of Southern Miss and the 3 Eastern schools that are coming in as well.
So on that note of conference expansion, what's been your thoughts as you kind of see these teams coming in? We're just a couple months away from them really becoming official members of the Sun Belt Conference.
Well, I love it. I love the addition of Southern Miss just from a travel perspective for us selfishly. For me personally, I can go and basically go do a game in Hattiesburg and what we call a turn and burn and go, and depending on how the schedule and basketball or things like that. I mean, we're all focusing on football, but there's way more to this. And the stability of this league and look, for ULM as well in the other sports, you lost 2 good partners from a travel perspective in Little Rock and UTA, but that's part of progress and growth. And whenever you see the money that's going to come to these 14 teams as a result of the expansion of the ESPN deal, and you're going to have more linear television coverage, and you're going to have more exposure and really great competition. This league is stable. I think it's going to be nipping on the heels of the American very, very soon. It already are, as far as Group of 5 standings go, have soared up the charts and will only get better. JMU won't be far off. If anything, they might be like Georgia Southern and come in and compete year one and be right there as far as competitive inside this league. And then, Old Dominion and Marshall and Southern Miss on the western side. So I like it. I'm interested to see. We have the football model. We see how it's going to be modeled by the SEC model with the 8 games. And so whenever you go play an East school, you may not go back there for a decade, but you're going to play your West schools, every year, home and home. That's how every other year. But I'm interested to see how basketball is going to end up, how they're going to do this scheduling from a travel partner perspective, because I think you still have to have that. And then baseball, man, this league, as good as it is going to be in football, and I think it's going to be upgraded in men's basketball, this baseball league is going to be one of the top 5, I believe, in the country whenever you look at the additions of Southern Miss, ODU, and teams like that. So, and obviously with the current teams that are in. So I like it. I'm looking forward to going to some new places. I'm sad that you won't go to Arlington or Little Rock anymore just because they were easy trips. And I'm a creature of habit, so I know where to stay, where to go eat, things like that. But when I get a chance to go to those Eastern schools, I know where to do that in Hattiesburg as well. I'll get a chance to venture out and find some new places when and if I get the chance to go to those places.
So I know the people that will be guiding you are the other voices around the Sun Belt Conference. Tell me about the other voices there. I mean, we all know Barry McKnight at Troy is probably
right.
The pipes, probably followed closely by Brant Freeman there of Texas State, and then of course Nick White, and then Jay Walker of Louisiana Lafayette, a guy that we've had.
Well, I mean, you left Jay out. I mean, Jay is 1 in a million now. So we this crew, and I'm looking forward to. course, we're welcoming into our crew John Cox, who will have more experience than some of those guys, those first guys, Danny and all of us, D1 experience. I mean, goodness gracious, at Southern Miss, how long has he been doing it? He's going to be doing it for a while. I don't know the three that are coming in from the East, but we'll welcome them in. I hate losing Ray Tucker and Josh Sowers. Ray at Little Rock, and obviously they're not football guys, but Josh Sowers at UT Arlington. We have a text group, and it's slowed down a little bit lately, but during football and basketball, we're texting each other. We bust each other's chops quite a bit. But I tell you what, whenever you go through something personally as well, there's not a better group of guys. And I don't want to get too deep in it, but I've gone through some pretty significant, personal things here in my life right before football season. Some things that kind of, rock my world personally. And that group of guys were there for great, not here personally, in person, but man, through text and the calls and all the support they gave. I mean, we are a tight knit group, and whenever we get a chance to get together, we laugh and we bust each other's chops, and we have some fun. Sunbelt Media Day and Sunbelt Tournament for basketball and baseball. I don't do baseball anymore, but I'm planning on going down to Montgomery to go hang with the guys just to get an opportunity to see them. We are a tight group. We have fun, and I'm looking forward to welcoming 4 great new voices and others. We include the women's and the baseball guys as well. We're an interesting fraternity, but there's not a better group of guys, professional, great at what they do, award-winning broadcasters, and we all lean on each other, support each other, and have a lot of fun with each other when we get together.
How could I forget Josh Sowers? I mean, the man's jackets alone should make him a Hall of Famer.
I agree. I think, we call him kind of the Craig Sager of the Sun Belt, and the Craig Sager soon to be of the WAC. But we're going to miss him so much, and we're going to send him out the right way down in Montgomery. I believe we'll have a good time with it.
So, Nick, you talk about the closeness there of the broadcasters. Can you take us through a prep for a game day and what that looks like in the booth?
Well, and everybody does it differently. I mean, it depends. Football to me is a week-long process. So the way that I get ready for a game is you say once you going into the first game, you do a lot more prep, especially for your own team. And then after the first couple of games, to me, you're updating stats, you're doing things, like that. And look, the charts that I use are Barry McKnight's chart template as far as my football charts. And he's great resource for broadcasters. A number of us in the league and across the country use his templates for building charts. But the way I get ready for a game is Sundays I'm off. I don't, as far as football, and it's different once you get to crossover season, and sometimes you're going to be doing some basketball games and things like that. But I don't do anything on Sunday. Monday is kind of an information gathering day. Usually don't have game notes yet. Usually by Tuesday you're going to have game notes for both teams and depth charts. So I call Tuesday my chart day. And so that's the day that I really get in there and pretty much an all-day process of building my charts or updating my charts for ULM and building them from there. And then the rest of the week is filling in. You're going to have updates to depth charts. So you're adding that, but you're studying, you're doing interviews, you're doing things like this. You're talking to the other broadcasters, you're researching. To me, the way I try to get ready for a football broadcast, you're looking at putting in, or at least I put in, and this is not, trying to brag or anything. It's just the way that I try to prepare for a football game is 25 to 30 hours of prep going into this thing. And, and you end up using about 10% of the information that you put into your brain. So that's the process. I print them out. I print out my materials usually by Friday morning. I get all my live reads ready. And depending on travel or home games, you get to the booth and you get set up. By Saturday, the hay is really in the barn. And on game day, I don't really, do anything except show up and do the game. I put it all in my brain. And then once the game is over, this is something I've always kind of tried to do because, once again, the importance of, I think, having that off day and clearing your mind. I usually do a pretty good job of, once the game is over, I flush the information on the opponent and kind of flush that game, whether kind of like coaches do, win or loss, and I move on to the next one. That's what I use Sunday for. I dive in. I enjoy time with my family. I watch the NFL action, go to church, do all those sort of things, and then get ready for the next opponent, kind of like coaching staffs and players do in getting ready for the games. Now, whenever it gets to crossover season in basketball, it becomes a lot more challenging from a travel perspective. I can recall this year, and we all deal with this inside the league, but, playing Auburn on a Friday night, getting back to Monroe at 4 a.m., being at my son's, and that's the work, family life balance as well that you have, being at my son's football playoff game at 8 a.m. on that Saturday morning, and then getting to Malone Stadium and broadcasting the Arkansas State game. And I think that weekend I ended up with about 10 hours of sleep, just getting ready for all that traveling and things like that. But that's part of the job. It's what we signed up for. And it's really fun, and just blessed to be able to be one of the few Division I broadcasters in this country, and kind of that's the way I look at it and go into all my games.
I'm good, man. Hopefully, Dave Cohen's got you a steak. He's my guy at GSU. He's kind of one of the elder statesmen, like Jay.
Yes, he is.
Oh my goodness, I tell people stories constantly. We used to sit in his office and talk about what happens if Georgia State ever got football. Of course, he was the voice of the Furman Paladins, would to make the trip up, and I was always fascinated by radio guys and broadcasters. Obviously, most folks have no idea the prep time and the work that you guys do, and I now with social media, I can see when Dave's online because he's usually either tweeting something about KISS or
that's right.
About something going on or something Boston. So we talk. We get into baseball season, going back and forth, and of course NBA playoff season. His beloved Celtics. So we back and forth about that. But yeah, it's truly an art form, and I hope folks in Monroe and around the surrounding areas appreciate you as they appreciate every voice. Because I tell people, I'm of the age I grew up with radio. I had my radio guys in a variety of different sports, and they don't call them forever. So know when you have good ones and tell them about it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want to give credit too here. We have a great I don't want to say secondary broadcaster, but our broadcaster for women's basketball and baseball now, and that was whenever we split from double headers in basketball. I decided to go on and make the move away from baseball with now a 9 and a 7-year-old. It's really tough to do baseball, and so I did step away. But I think Mike Hammett, the guy that we have, and I hired him. He's in his 4th year now. He deserves a football job as well, and that's that's part of this as well is how hard it is to get one of these jobs. And I got very lucky being a local guy that Doug Mosley, who was associate athletic director at ULM, started me off doing men's and women's basketball, and then I added baseball, and then obviously was the voice in waiting with Frank Hoffman retiring after 42 years and getting football full time. But it's tough to get one of these jobs, no matter what. You got to be good, number one. You got to be talented. And you got to be lucky. It's a lot of, and I've had some opportunities in some other places, and some of them just weren't the right fits geographically or whatever it might have been. But I'm happy to be in Monroe. I'm blessed to be the voice of the Warhawks, and Lord willing, I'll be sticking around for quite some time. But I enjoy the camaraderie, and it is an art form, and it's great to hear you say that and appreciate the work that we all put in our craft and in our profession. It's really a cool job.
So with all the football, basketball, baseball, softball talk, the Sun Belt finally announced that we are officially back in the football game as Marshall pulled their weight and had Keith Gill bring back men's soccer beginning the fall of 2022. Something we had sponsored before, ending in 2020 due to the COVID year. 6 current members of the Sun Belt Conference: James Madison, Marshall, Old Dominion, Coastal, Georgia Southern, Georgia State. But then we have 3 affiliate members: the Kentucky Wildcats, the South Carolina Gamecocks, and West Virginia Mountaineers. 9 teams combined for over 100 all-time NCAA appearances, including Marshall's championship last year.
It's incredible. If you can have the SEC of men's soccer, that's it right there. It's absolutely loaded, top to bottom. You're going to have at-larges. I believe multiple at-large bids coming out of the Sun Belt, including obviously the tournament champion to go into the NCAA tournament field. Just incredible to have that level of talent in soccer, and honestly, a sport that has continued to grow in the Southeast. And I think due to a large part, I mean, I've talked to Georgia State head coach Brett Cernsey about it. The MLS's expansion into the Southeast has really aided a lot of that as well, because you're seeing some of those MLS teams as well as the MLS2 teams kind of pocket in the Southeast, and even kind of around the pocket of the geographical footprint, to use a Carl Benson term, of the Sun Belt. Having real talent continue to stay home, and I think it's a humongous win for Keith Gill and the league to bring back soccer, and just some heavyweights, man. That's going to be the fun part to me to watch. Certainly seeing how those teams develop, how the league adapts to Marshall, and obviously how Marshall adapts to the league.
We had an email come in over the week as well, shifting gears on that, asking why are the conference offices in New Orleans? I had no idea, so I had to do a little research. They've been in New Orleans since 1991, when the American South, which largely gave us the likes of Lamar, Southwestern Louisiana, now Louisiana Lafayette, and Arkansas State, merged with the Sun Belt. It's kind of centrally located to all the schools, minus the new expansion schools. So maybe we got to shift a little bit more east, and it moves over to Mobile or Pensacola, so it's more centralized. But it's the perfect location. It's in the Superdome, so there's plenty of office space, plenty of room for the offices. And it's a premier sports town. I mean, the Final Four is there. The Super Bowl's been there many times. What more could you ask for, Ben?
Yeah, and it's a convention town too. You're going to have hotels. You're going to have things to do. You're going to have plenty of great food, as we well know from our travels down in New Orleans as well. There was initially, as we were talking a little bit earlier, some potential movement. When you have a new commissioner, you want to potentially make a statement with not only staff, but could that be on the move? But yeah, it looks like it's settled in New Orleans, and that's just fine, probably with the membership. Theirs is easy to get there. And then, of course, now coming off, 2020 and 2021, if people can't make it in person, you still have the Zoom option. You have other things that way where you can kind of tap in, and looking forward to media days. Of course, we just had those emails hit as well, which is always, you look up and you're like, all right, now it's time to get serious about, when media days on the horizon.
No show next week, Ben. So I ask you to kick off the parting shots, plugs, and promos.
Yeah, you talked about it, man. Something's in the water in Atlanta. There's a lot of winning going on at Georgia State, and I think it's a credit, obviously, to the coaching staff and the players as they're continuing to power through. And looking forward to a great week series, Georgia State versus Georgia Southern. From where I sit, it's always State, not Southern. And looking forward to that rivalry and that battle down in Statesboro. We say State with the apostrophe, Statesboro, there for anybody interested. But yeah, PantherTalk.com. We're still talking recruiting. We have a new basketball coach, Jonas Hayes. Didn't even mention that on the podcast, but he gets formally introduced tomorrow at 1:30. Will be streamed on ESPN Plus for those interested in taking a look at that. So he's landed 2 high major commitments, big time players, as he's trying to rebuild that roster that went to the NCAA tournament and got smacked by Gonzaga. So he's trying to get back and build that. I'm looking forward to catching up with Jonas And I'm going to also ask him if we can get him on the Fun Belt podcast very, very soon too. So plug. I'm going to try to get him sooner rather than later. But yeah, that's what we got going on. Of course, recruiting and baseball and softball and all the other fun stuff that's going on in Pantherland. So back to you, sir.
You have to remind him of the power of the show, that of all the accomplishments that we have had for everyone that's been on the show. It's dumbfounding.
We just won't bring up Chanda over at Troy. Just we'll skip right past that one.
Yeah, we got to delete that from the catalog. Warhawk Report breaking down the spring game there for the Warhawk football team, as well as breaking down a transfer portal visitor that the Warhawks hosted over the weekend for men's basketball. But Ben, my parting shot for you, it's great when a guy can hit a home run, pimp it out, bat flip, but you better make damn sure that you're on the right side of that. This past week, Sam Houston State was at Houston. Houston guy hits a home run. He's pimping it, bat flipping it, trips over first base to injure his shoulder. Guys, that just and then of course the right thing to do in the unwritten rules of baseball, you throw at the next guy of, hey, you can't show up my pitcher. But if I'm that batter, I'm pissed that I'm getting thrown at because your dumbass tripped over first base.
It's a conversation that has to happen. We know the unwritten rules of baseball, but come on, man. And look, Coastal had a guy pimp a home run, and then they took an L on Saturday. Georgia Southern, I saw the video as well as he gets tagged out and kind of claps his hands right there in front of the first baseman. We know baseball more than any other sport has those unwritten rules, and you kind of have to do things the right way. But I agree totally, man. If you're going to pimp a home run, you become viral in a hurry when you trip over first base. I did see that video.
Other than that, guys, Dusty Thibodeaux, Warhawk Report, Ben Moore for Panther Talk. We'll be back in 2 weeks after the Easter Bunny comes and visits us. Until then, be sure to check us out online, Twitter, Funbelt PC, where we will be recapping the exciting week upcoming of baseball and softball matchups.
At Kroger, an annual Boost membership just got even better. Now you can choose from Disney Plus with ads, Hulu with ads, or ESPN Plus on us when you sign up. Plus, enjoy unlimited free delivery, double fuel points, exclusive offers, and free items. Sign up for a Boost membership today. It's an easier way to save, including new streaming options to relax with while we deliver your groceries. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.